Adrian was thrown out of the conference, unaware that he was the main sponsor. What could have been a moment of shame turned into a bold decision that shook everyone to their core. He wasn't leaving quietly. He was about to teach them a lesson they'd never forget. And what followed stunned even the most experienced professionals. The evening had started with high hopes. Adrian stepped into the grand conference hall, his shoulders squared, wearing a suit that fit him perfectly. But beneath the sharp appearance, unease brewed. He had faced prejudice before being dismissed in meetings, overlooked for awards, singled out for random checks. But tonight, things were supposed to be different. He wasn't just a guest. He was the main sponsor. Yet, the moment he walked in, the cold stares told him a different story. Crystal chandeliers glittered above, and marble floors gleamed under his feet. Everything about the hall screamed wealth and prestige, but despite all that grandeur, Adrian felt like an outsider. At the reception desk, he handed over his invitation with a polite smile. "Good evening, I'm Adrian," he said warmly, expecting a professional welcome. The receptionist barely glanced at him, her expression turning suspicious. "Are you sure you belong here?" she asked, her voice dripping with doubt. Before Adrian could respond, 2 large security guards approached, standing on either side of him with intimidating presence. "We need you to leave," one of them said coldly, his hand resting on the radio strapped to his belt. Adrian kept his voice calm but firm. "This must be a mistake. I'm the sponsor of this event." The second guard chuckled, as if he'd heard a joke. "We don't care who you say you are. This is a private event, and you don't belong here." Those words cut deeper than he expected. All his success, his status, wealth, and hard-earned respect meant nothing. To them, he was just another man who didn't fit their idea of who belonged in that space. The guards didn't wait for an explanation. They grabbed his arms and dragged him to the exit as if he were a criminal. The murmurs of conversations inside the hall continued uninterrupted, as though his presence had never mattered. Adrian stood on the sidewalk stunned, the cool night air stinging more than the humiliation. People passing by cast quick glances his way, some curious, others indifferent. To them, he was just another man denied entry. They didn't see the powerful businessman or visionary behind the event. He adjusted his suit jacket, which now felt more like a symbol of rejection than success. A sharp wave of frustration surged through him. How many more times would he have to fight to prove his worth? Adrian's fingers tightened around his phone as old memories resurfaced, meetings where he was talked over, partnerships lost because of implicit bias, and polite smiles hiding thinly veiled prejudice. Each incident whispered the same cruel message: you don't belong. But tonight, Adrian wasn't going to let it slide. He wouldn't walk away in silence. He dialed his assistant without hesitation. "Get me the event organizer." "Now," he said, his voice low but brimming with controlled anger. Moments later, the organizer's frantic voice came through the line. "Adrian, I am so sorry. There's been a terrible mistake. Please come back, I'll fix everything." Adrian's jaw clenched. "A mistake?" he repeated slowly. "I want everyone responsible gone tonight." He wasn't asking for apologies. He was demanding respect. Inside the hall, the event buzzed with chatter and laughter, unaware of the storm brewing just outside. But things were about to change quickly. The organizer, a well-dressed woman with perfect posture, rushed toward the security guards. Her face flushed with anger as she shouted at them, loud enough to turn heads nearby. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she yelled. The guards, who had been smug moments ago, now looked pale. Confusion spread across their faces. "He's the main sponsor," the organizer hissed. "The reason this event is even happening." Panic set in. Their confidence crumbled under the weight of their mistake. One guard muttered, "We thought." But there were no excuses left to hide behind. They knew what this meant: their jobs were gone. Meanwhile, Julia, the head of public relations, had been observing the scene. She knew Adrian's influence, and she knew the disaster his absence could trigger not just financially, but publicly. This could ruin the event's reputation in minutes. She sprinted toward the exit, hoping to salvage the situation before it was too late. Adrian stood outside under the glow of a street lamp, his tall frame casting a long shadow. His expression was unreadable, but the tension around him was thick with disappointment. "Adrian," Julia called as she reached him, slightly breathless. "Please listen. You're right to be upset, but we need you inside. Let me fix this." For a moment, Adrian said nothing. His cold, steady gaze met hers, and silence stretched between them. Julia fidgeted nervously, knowing the stakes couldn't be higher. Finally, Adrian spoke, his voice calm but full of warning. "You have one chance. Don't waste it." Julia exhaled, relief washing over her, but she knew the responsibility on her shoulders was immense. She nodded and led Adrian back toward the entrance. As soon as he stepped back into the hall, the atmosphere shifted. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. All eyes turned to Adrian, the man they had dismissed. The guards froze in place, dread written all over their faces. They knew their fate was sealed. Without sparing them a glance, Adrian made his way to the stage. The spotlight hit him, casting a commanding presence over the audience. A hush fell across the room, and every guest leaned in, anticipating what he would say. "The events of tonight," Adrian began, his voice calm yet powerful, "serve as a reminder of how much work we still have ahead of us." He paused briefly, letting the weight of his words settle. "I don't sponsor events like these just for recognition," he continued. "I do it to challenge assumptions and open doors that have long been closed." The audience listened in rapt silence, guilt mingling with admiration. "Tonight should not be just another lesson swept under the rug," Adrian said. "I expect accountability not just for me, but for anyone who faces these same barriers." With that, Adrian stepped down from the stage. The room erupted in applause this time, not out of politeness, but out of respect. The guards were fired on the spot, and the organizers scrambled to repair the damage. But Adrian had already won. He didn't just regain control, he made an impact no one would forget. That night became more than just an event. It became a symbol of Adrian's strength and determination. No matter how many times he was knocked down, Adrian proved one thing: he would rise. And he would rise stronger. Because in a world that tried to break him, Adrian was and always would be unbreakable.